Hi, I'm the Lone Builder, and welcome to the first episode of Highway 66 Chevy Corvair Corsa Street Rod Build and the Manufacturer's Product Showcase. If you've got a few extra minutes to stick around, I hope you'll join me as I'll tell you a little bit about the car sitting behind me and what my plans are to turn this once little mild-mannered Corvair into a 500 horsepower street machine. So stick around, and thanks for joining me on the first episode out of 24 on Highway 66. Let's get started. Let me tell you a little bit about the car and how I got my hands on it. May of last year, 2021, I spotted the car on Craigslist. And I was looking for a project car and wanted to do something a little bit different. And I've had the Corvair 65 later body style up on my mind and thought it was just a great looking body. I just love the body lines on the car and the way it's setting there. And I've done everything else. I've done all the Camaros, the Novas, and your typical muscle cars from the 60s and 70s. So I kind of had my feel of that, and I wanted to do something a little different. So anyway, I spotted the car on Craigslist, and about 10:30 one night, which I normally wouldn't call someone that late, I decided to call the gentleman and see if it was available. And lo and behold, he answered the phone and said yes, the car is still available. However, he was getting ready to take it off Craigslist because he was just tired of answering all the phone calls and all the people wanting to, complain about the price, wanted to Jew him down, and actually wanted to get into his bank account, and and he just didn't trust anybody. So he's an older gentleman, just going to take it offline. I said, well, I'm interested in the car. However, I'm 1,245 miles away one way, and I can't just jump in the truck and drive over and look at it. So, but I did tell him I was very serious about it, and I was a street rod builder, and I've got some plans for the car, and maybe that gave him a little bit of thought to the decision that he made. He said, well, the car is available, and if you want it, you can have it. So we agreed on the price. It had already posted online, and I didn't even bother to ask him if he'd take less. I knew that he wasn't going to do that, and so I was just going to pay the price, which sometimes you have to do. I didn't mind. I wanted the car. So anyway, I told him it'd take me about a week to clear my schedule where I could get in the trailer and the truck, or get in the truck and get the trailer hooked up and make the journey to Madison, Wisconsin, where the car was setting. And he said, well, you can do that, but the car is not ready. And I thought, well, what does that mean? I didn't know what that quite meant. And when someone says the car is not ready, well, I immediately thought that maybe there's not even a car, and that's just a picture. And I've seen some horror stories online about that before. So anyway, he said, no, the brakes are locked up. The car's been setting a while. And I thought, well, okay, I understand that. And again, he was an older gentleman. He said it would take him about a week, maybe two, to get the brakes undone and free the car where I could even roll it up on the trailer. So anyway, as you notice, this is live. I'm filming this outside, so when you see the cars and stuff go by, that's just what it is. The car is going to be built here in the driveway, so I can't really avoid that. I'm not going to stop filming this intro just for the cars to get by. So bear with me. I hope you understand that. Again, not in a shop environment anymore to be able to have all the comforts of the shop and the lift and all that. I'm going to do this the hard way, and really that's okay. I've gone full circle from a full-blown hot rod shop from my garage when I started building all the way to back in the garage now after almost 30 years. But anyway, back on the story about the car. So anyway, finally, and I only had 4 pictures to look at. And if you go to our series, you can see part 1 through 4. Those are just pictures of what I saw when I made the decision to purchase the car. And so I didn't have a whole lot to go on, and I asked him, would he send me a few more pictures? Well, that took about another week. And he finally sent me the pictures, and I called him up. I said, look, this is the day I'm leaving. I'll bring you cash. The guy didn't want a check. He didn't want any deposits. He just wanted the money for what he was asking for the car. And I said, okay. So I told him I would head out at a certain day. So I took the truck, took my old Tahoe and the trailer, and headed out on a Saturday morning and drove all the way to Illinois, pretty good ways. Stayed all night, got up 5 o'clock the next morning, and drove into Madison, Wisconsin, where the car was at. I knocked on the door and introduced myself, and the gentleman said, come on, the car's back here. And from the pictures, I knew the car was sitting outside, and kind of hard to tell exactly where. When I got there, the car was about 40 yards behind his wood frame garage, detached garage. He had another couple of vehicles in there, but the car was sitting way down an embankment, sitting sideways, and I thought, oh, golly, it's a long way from where I was hoping it would be, and it's going to be hard to get my truck and trailer down there just to pull the car out of there. So anyway, I walked down there and looked at it, and first thoughts were, whew, what have you got yourself into? As a builder, sometimes we can overlook, but the car looked pretty rough. But it was just paint. It was just what it looked like, and so I asked him a little bit more in detail about the car, and trying to really get my mind off of the decision that I had made. But I've already driven 1,245 miles to pick it up, so I wasn't going to go back home empty-handed. And so I asked him a little bit about the car, and thanks for being patient here as I tell the story. I want to give you the whole story. But anyway, the gentleman said the last time the car had been really moved, or really had anybody lay their hands on it or do anything, touch with it, mess with it, well, the car had set outside. It was covered up with a couple of sheets of sheetrock and 3 tarps. And the car had set. Now, this is the gentleman's telling me, so I've never met him, so I'm not going to doubt his word. But the car had been sitting outside for 32 years. And I was just blown away by that, sitting there. I'm surprised there was anything left on the car and worth even bringing home. But after walking around the car, he managed to get the driver's door open, and the passenger door wouldn't open at all. And it was still sitting. He put some old tires on it, had a little bit of air in them. And I knew they were going to hold air very long. So anyway, to kick it into high gear, we got ready. I hooked up my winch and get ready to winch the car out of there. It wouldn't move at all. He didn't have time to get the back wheels unlocked. They were still frozen up and rusted solid. So I didn't have a whole lot of tools with me, and it was a chore to say the least. So 5 hours later, after no tools, hammering on the brakes to get them loose, we finally got the car on the trailer, and I headed back to Texas. So anyway, that's kind of what I had to go on when I made the decision to buy the car. And so it was a lot to think about, and I had a lot to think about on the way back home as I was driving back to Texas to get the car home. So this is kind of where we're at right now, and that's a little bit of the history. But setting outside, again, it wasn't a barn find, but setting outside for 32 years, that's pretty remarkable for me. And but anyway, I thought the car was a great deal, and but I really still hadn't had a chance to look close at it, and I couldn't do that till we got the car back home, got it off the trailer. So this was my next step on what I wanted to do, and how I wanted to pursue the build on the car. So let me share that with you, and I'll try it again. I'll try to make it quick. The video is going to be about 30 minutes long on everything that we're trying to talk about here, and kind of showcase what we're doing and explain the history on the car. And again, my details that I'm going to share with you in a minute about what I'm going to do to the car. So let me tell you, when I got the car home, this is what happened. All right, the first thing I had to do was get some new tires on the original 13-inch wheels that came on the car. It had the hubcaps and everything. This car was complete. It had everything that you could want to have on it, just wasn't running. I mean, this was a Corvair Corsa. It was a turbo car, original 180 turbo, had the 4-speed and the factory gauges in there. It kind of looked, pretty muscle car to me, and with what I knew I was going to do to the car. But anyway, discount wasn't too far from me, so I ran over to Discount Tire and took the old wheels over there. They took all the old tires off and put me some new 13-inch rubber on these old wheels, and I put the hubcaps back on them, or the wire hubcaps. That way I could roll the car in and out of the garage. Wouldn't have to worry about airing the tires up every day. So I got that done first. Then pretty quick, as time would allow, I started really taking a closer look at the car. And it was really, I was amazed. Again, the car sat outside for 32 years, and I'm surprised that the car wasn't just totally rusted away, especially in Madison, Wisconsin. But the gentleman told me he didn't really drive the car out in the snow and didn't get any salt underneath it. And and the pieces of sheetrock that he had on it, he told me this, something I didn't know as a builder. He said that sheetrock is a pretty good moisture gatherer, is why he put those sheets of sheetrock on that car, and it must have done its job with the tarps on it, because it sucked up a whole lot of moisture and kept it out of the car. And I guess that's just my assumption, but what he shared with me. But anyway, when I started looking, a little bit closer at the car, again, the car was complete. All the seats were in it, interior headliner, gauges, factory radio, the glove box, all that stuff was still there, and it was in pretty good shape. And I just, again, couldn't believe it. But anyway, it was a great place to start. So then I felt a little bit better about the purchase that I'd made and what I paid for the car to get it back here. So I didn't want one running anyway, because I knew I was going to probably tear into the car. So anyway, I started looking a little bit closer at the car, and immediately looked in the engine compartment and started tearing the engine apart and getting all the metal away from it, all the tin from surrounding the motor. And I just wanted to look at it, and I was just, again, shocked when I took the motor apart. Finally looked inside. It would turn over. It would rotate really easy. And so when I took the engine apart, got it out of the car, disassembled it, again, what I'm finding was pretty incredible for me. The crank looked fantastic. The pistons looked good. I could have polished the crank and probably put some maybe new bearings and rings in this car or something like that, and probably got the car running. Again, it was a 4-speed car, and put some new brakes on it and, you know, mess with it. Probably could have drove the car around my neighborhood. But anyway, so I started looking at it, pretty close, started pulling all the, the engine out, got all that done, pulled all the interior, most of the interior out of the car, the back seat, all the carpet and all that, all the door panels, and that way I could really start looking at the body and just see what was there. And because I'd never really even looked under the car when I first purchased it to see the rockers and all that stuff, or what the floor pan looked like. I didn't really care. I was just really after that body. And so when I pulled all the carpet out and got most of the interior out of there, again, surface rust in the pans, no holes in the pan whatsoever, no rust throughs anywhere. I mean, again, it would have been probably a great car to put back in its original form, and that's probably going to aggravate some of you traditional builders for the Corvair, but I'm a hot rod guy, and it is what it is. But so I thought that was pretty sharp, and the rockers under the doors, the door panels, everything underneath the doors are in fantastic condition. No rust holes, just a little bit of surface rust. It again just really excited me and made this even more interesting as I was thinking about what I was going to do to the car. So anyway, so I started working on the car again, a little bit each day, and what I could do, 2 or 3 days a week on the weekend, having a good time. So I started sanding the body down, and because I really wanted to see what was underneath all that paint. And another good feature is I think one of the extras from General Motors was the undercoating, and I think it was either $7, maybe $12 to $15 for that for that extra. And I tell you what, that did a fantastic job of keeping the rust out of the fender wells and underneath the car, and that helped a whole lot too. So that was the next positive thing. So things were getting better the further I go and the more I look at the car. So I was excited about that too. So anyway, everything was looking good, and I was trying to make decisions on what to do. So after taking the motor out, I thought, well, I can rebuild the motor again, maybe sand it down. So I was sanding everything down, and after I got it totally stripped, there was some places that I spotted that I wasn't happy about. It wasn't terrible. It's going to be pretty easy for me to fix, and to weld in some new panels, some new patch panels back here on the back of the car. And this one, particularly up here up front, had about a half a can of Bondo filler on it. But whoever did it did a good job, because again, I didn't walk around the car with a magnet and look and see what might stick and fall off. I didn't do any of that. But that's really the least of my worries there. The structure of the car was really what I was after, and how well that was still intact. So anyway, I again thought about what I was going to do, and thought about just putting all the car back together and driving it. But after I got the body all stripped down, I shot about two good and heavy coats of PPG high build or PPG epoxy primer, which the car was metal prepped, and it was cleaned really well before I did that. And after shooting the epoxy primer, I don't have to worry about the body deteriorating any further, any rust underneath it. It was all stripped, and the metal prep gets rid of all of that. All really good, again, PPG products, and the epoxy primer with 2 good coats, I could let the car sit outside and it would be fine for years. But anyway, again, as I'm working on the car, it's giving me ideas on what I want to do. And so after I got all the interior out, I really started thinking and looking in the trunk area, which I think they call it the frunk, which I guess that's the trunk and the front end. But if you're Corvair guys, you know the gas tank's up underneath the front end, and that's where all the luggage goes. But it is huge, guys. I mean, I started looking at it, and there's such a huge amount of prime real estate up there. A lot of these cars have been built with mid-engines. They've put other, different engines in the back and this and that. But and Ed Cole at General Motors did a great job on that. And matter of fact, I think the first turbo ever put in a car like this back in in the early '60s. But for being a hot rod guy, the more I looked at the front end of the car and opened that, and I'm gonna call it the hood now. The more I looked at that, I just couldn't resist putting a small block Chevy engine up front in this Corvair. And I went back to my old childhood, or my old driving. That when I first started driving, my first car was a '67 Camaro. My second car was a '69 original Z28 car, with the factory tack and the gauges clustered down on the console, the 4-speed, the 12-bolt posi, and all that stuff. An original Z28 that when I was in the military, had a couple of buddies blow that up for me, and I wasn't making enough to keep it, so I sold it. And had I known what I know now, I'd sold something else instead of that car, but that's a different story all in itself. But the point of that, I was gonna put a 302 in it, for just a little nostalgia and what I can remember back in the day. We could pretty much build that car just like it was back then, probably minus the cross ram intake and all that stuff. But and then I thought, well, I've been watching a lot of YouTubes, and these guys are just building these 5.3 LSs left and right, and they're doing them really nice, and they're a dime a dozen. You can get them anywhere you want to get them. So that's where this is heading. That's where the build of the car kind of originated, and I thought, well, as a hot rod guy, I looked over my garage, and after studying the front end of the car, thinking about the LS and the junkyard, picking up one, I decided to go that route, and that's where we're going with the car. And so I'd made my mind up to do the 5.3. I was going to rebuild it. I'll get the machine work done on it at one of my local shops here, but I'll build a car. We'll do a forged roller, lower part of the car, and we should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 to 500 horsepower when I'm finished with that build. And so looking at it the way I've got it cut out, and I'm going to show you some pictures. We're getting really close to all of that. And so the way I've got everything cut out in the front, I was really just going to just structurally build a pocket around the unibody. And you'll see where I've got it cut out in a minute. I was going to build a pocket around that, put some 2x4 rectangle tubing, some 11 gauge, run it all the way back to back, and just do a subframe connector style setup on the car, and which would have been fine. That's exactly what I was going to do. Clean all the fender wells up in there and paint all of that. It would have looked like a early model Camaro or anything else that you see. And so that's the direction I was going with that as far as the chassis is concerned. And so when I take you over to the car in a minute, that's what you're going to see, and that was the plan. And anyway, what it amounts to, I'm going to do the 5.3, like I said, the roller, the full roller, build up on that. So we're going to put that 5-speed, or that we're going to put the LS 5.3 up front, and that's kind of my plans as to where we're at right now. And anyway, stick around. I'm not quite done. We're almost there. So if you'll hang in there with me just a minute, I'm going to walk around in just a little, about 5 to 7 more minutes. I'm going to walk around and show you everything now on camera that I've got cut out, and really what our plans are, and share a little bit more about the manufacturers that I hope is going to get involved with this build. We've had some really good luck and some good phone calls here lately, and I've got some folks interested in this, and I think you're going to find it pretty exciting. At least I do, as we get ready to build the Corvair. So hang in there with just a few minutes, and we'll go to a little segment here, and I'll get you over and let you look at the car. So thanks again. Be patient. Hang in there. All right, guys. I'm going to share with you the kind of the concept and the theme that's behind the car, the way it's setting right now, and pretty much the direction the car is going to go. What I've got here behind me, like I say, the car is an epoxy primer. It's setting just like you see it. The wheels that I've got on it right now are 15-inch, and I know a lot of you are going to go, you know, pro touring and all that. They want the 17s, 18s, and the 20s on there. But again, I'm 63, and I'm kind of want to take this car back to the 60s and something I might have done back then. So what I've got on it right now is a set of Corvette rallies from Weld-in. We purchased those from Summit Racing, got a great deal on them, and after we finally got the wheels that we wanted on there and the tires, I just like the looks of that. And so it's a good chance that that's going to stay that way, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments on that and your thought behind that, which I'd invite you to do so. But right now, we're running 15.7s on the back and 15.6s on the front. It's got a 215 60-15 with a 195 60-15 on the front. And I love the way the car looks. Again, it's old school. It's kind of got that tough looking old school without the rings around it. It's kind of just, you know, kind of bare, raw, hot rod looking to me right now, or at least it's going that direction. And so that's the theme of the car, to kind of disguise what we're getting ready to do, so people, you know, will look at it and go, well, that's just a little nice little 66 Corvair. However, again, what we're going to do from front to rear, let me tell you a little bit about that. And I could build this car myself, and you know, from start to finish, we could post all this build on YouTube, and it would be an okay story. But where the fun part comes in is, well, what if we could get some of the manufacturers involved and tell a little bit about their story, how they got started, and the parts that I plan on using from those manufacturers and in the build. And well, I think that's going to make a lot better story, not just the fact of getting parts. And let me share something about that quickly. If you are able to convince a manufacturer to get involved with a project, guys, you can't just take their parts and put them on the car and go down the road. When you do this, it's a huge responsibility. And as a professional builder, that's what's on my mind. So you can't just take a part and go build it and go. You're representing the company that's going to offer that part. And again, there's a lot behind that. So you can't take advantage of getting that part just to have the part. So, and what's really important too is I don't want to be the bad link in between the next guy that might call the manufacturer and go, could you help us out? Would you be interested in this project? And so we've got to represent these companies in a professional manner, and that's exactly what I intend to do, to where that company can look back and go, hey, that was a fun deal. We're glad to be involved in that, and we were glad to help. And so I thought, you know, I've always heard people say, well, if you don't ask, you never know. So in the last couple of weeks, I've made a few phone calls. Just I'm not going to spill the beans on who's almost committed to the project already. And I think it's because of, again, it's a little different. It's a 66 Corvair. There's some guys out there building these cars, and they're putting the engines up front and behind the seat and everything. But I think they kind of thought the story might be a pretty good story. And if we do it right, it's going to be a lot of fun. So anyway, if you're going to talk about, you know, if you talk to someone about getting some parts or getting possibly some help, you've got to do your part, and that's what we're going to do here. So anyway, the theme of the car, again, kind of the way it's sitting, kind of old school muscle car look from the 60s, but we're going to run that 5.3 LS motor up front, again 400 to 500 horsepower. As we go back to the car, what we're going to do, we're going to run a now to get me on the chassis, I'm going to share these names because the names that I'm sharing with you are from the companies that I have purchased parts from in the past, either building my car or building a customer's car. So I know what these parts are all about. So it's not like I'm gonna showcase the parts, and I'm gonna show you how I build the car, and from the welding to installing everything from the ground up. And that's really what this story is about. But the parts are not about, it's not a product review on do they work. I know they work. I've used them for 30 years. And so all that's been settled. I can build a car and put a customer in it. He can drive from one part of this country to the other and not worry about that car breaking down. All that's required in between his drives is the maintenance that you would on any other new car, because this car will be pretty much new from the ground up, with every nut and bolt being replaced and all the manufacturer's parts that we're going to put on it. It's going to be a new car. We're just using the old body. So anyway, Art Morrison Enterprise, I've known who they are for quite some time, and again, we've purchased components from them. We've purchased front end kits for them, Weld-in kits, and so what we're going to do on this one, we're going to see if we can get them to help us do the DeLuxe I.F.S, which is their independent front suspension kit that welds in. You take your steel and you weld it to what, how you're going to design your chassis. It's easy to do. It's a fantastic kit. It's going to give us independent front suspension that we can go to Weldwood, and we can just take that spindle type and we can give it to Weldwood, and we can get our brakes and install right on there, which will be on the car, be Weldwood disc all the way around on all four corners. But anyway, the chassis is going to start there with, we hope, with Art Morrison, one way or the other, whether they help or I buy. Again, because that's what I'm looking for, and that's the way I'm going to build the car. So if we take the chassis, we go from the chassis back. The next thing that we're going to do to set it up, of course, we're going to do the 5.3, the chassis. We're going to build a full-length chassis from front to rear. The next thing behind the engine is going to be the 5-speed TREMEC TKO 500 5-speed. I'm old, but hey, if I'm going to build a hot rod, I'm going to be shifting gears. No offense to the guys that are doing automatics. I know you may outrun me, but I still like hearing that thing at the red light and what it sounds like when I'm taking off. And so the next group I'm going to get in touch with, so the TREMEC is what we're going to use, and we're going to see if we can get some help there. The next part of the equation is going to be the 4 9-inch rear end. I'm going to look to Currie Enterprise for that. Again, I've used their housings before and their axle packages, and so that's what we're going to do. I'll build all the suspension around it, the 4-link, triangle link, or whatever I decide to do on the car, and we'll put a positive track 343 gear in it. And with that combination from the 450 to 500 horsepower, the TKO 500, the 5-speed, the 4 9-inch rear end with a 343 gear, in 5th gear at 70 miles an hour, I'm going to be turning 1960 60 RPM. I've done this before in my hot rod, and I know exactly what that combination does. And so with that horsepower and that combination, we're still going to be getting about 23 miles to a gallon, maybe even 24, which is phenomenal. Again, we're running probably a fast fuel injection system on there. I haven't called those guys yet, but we're going to see what they think about the project. But anyway, we'll run probably a factory GM wiring harness, and we'll map everything out the way I want it to work on the car. So that's a few of the major components going in here. On all 4 corners, again, we're going to run Weldwood brakes, and then we're going to get in touch with Ridetech and see what they have to say about this build. We'll put coilovers on all 4 corners. Rack and pinion steering, and I'm going to stay with the manual rack. I like that. No power steering. We're going to, I like that the way it is, but I just like the feel of the car. No power brakes. We're going to run 4-wheel disc. We're only building a 2,400 pound car, 2,600 at the most, and trust me, the 4-wheel disc from Weldwood will stop this car very easily without any issues. When we get a little bit further back to the back, we're going to go to Tanks. Tanks Incorporated is going to supply the tank, or we're going to get the tank from them, and I've used their tanks many times before, especially in my 32, and they fit great. They look good, and they work, and they'll build it for the fuel injection, with that little compartment down inside the tank, so we don't starve the injectors as we're getting ready to drive the car. So anyway, Tanks will be taking care of that for us. A little bit further along, when we get back into the car, we're probably going to run autometer gauges. That's a good chance of that, and I picked out a good looking set of gauges in there to go back in the original cluster in the same order that they're in right there. So we'll use those guys. That'll be a pretty easy deal. When we get to the wiring, I'm going to wire the car, and we're going to go directly to American Auto Wire. Again, I've used those. I know some of the guys there, and so that's the direction that we'll go with the wiring. And again, there's a ton of other manufacturers that we hope we're going to get involved with this, but that's just a handful of the manufacturers and the parts that I have used in the past that are going on the car. So we're getting close to the end of the video. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a pause here. I'm going to get the camera in my hand, and I'm going to walk around and show you what we're doing and how we've got it cut out. And that way, on the second episode, what's going to happen after this one when I show you how we've got the car cut out and a little bit about the interior of the car. The next episode, and again, I hope you subscribe, because again, we're doing 24 videos, 24 episodes to show this car, not just to talk about it. I'm going to show you how I'm going to build it. And how I got the name The Lone Builder, well, I'm going to build the car. I'm going to build it by myself. And that's not a pat on the back. That's just the way it's going to be done. And I mean, when I say I'm going to build it, I'll get the engine work, you know, the block machine. I'll buy the third member and the transmission. But everything else I'm going to do on the car. I will do the paint and body. I will build the engine. I'll do all the TIG welding that's on the chassis components to weld those in. Again, I'll paint the car. I'll do the wiring. I'll install the vintage air. I will build this car from the ground up, and it's going to take about a year. So I really do hope you'll subscribe, and I know I can be long-winded sometimes, but hey, I'm telling a story, and this may be my last one. So I really appreciate you joining me here. And again, I'm going to do it outside. This is for real. This is just the way this is going to happen. And you know, if I was back in the shop, it may be a little bit, you know, easier to film without all the noise. But if the dogs bark and the bird sings, that's just what it's going to be. And so I hope you appreciate that. But anyway, give me about 3 or 4 more minutes. I'm going to get the camera off. We're going to walk around the car as I tell you what I'm going to do to the car. So let's do that right now. And again, I hope you come back and join us. Subscribe to the channel. And about every 2 weeks, we're going to release a new video. Or when we get a manufacturer's parts, we're going to showcase that part. We'll lay everything out and tell you all about it. And then we're going to start putting those parts together in the build of the car. So welcome to Highway 66, the Corvair Corsa street rod build. And let me show you what I've done to the car in a little more detail, and then we'll sign off. And I really appreciate you viewing. So let's take a look inside the car. All right, guys, here we are at the front of the car, and you can see how that's cut out. You can see how much damage you can do with a cutoff wheel and a sawzall. But anyway, where it's at right now, we're going to be taking it a little bit further than that. And you can see, you can kind of see right here. Let me get my finger in there. I don't know if you can see that. See right here, we're going to cut that all the way out. From there all the way around. Once we get our chassis started, we'll take out all the old original cross member and get rid of that. Matter of fact, we'll offer that to somebody for free, where they can, if they want to put a stock Corvair back together, they can do that. So you can see how everything's done and making preparations to be able to build the chassis. Now, this section right here, you can see where this is at. Let me show you this part right here. I'm going to cut that, and right here we'll build a piece that goes all the way across here and ties that in. So our new frame rails will come from about where they're at right there all the way back up to this part right here, all the way back up to here. So and you'll get to see how I do that when we get ready to build the chassis for it. Again, we hopefully with Art Morrison's I.F.S. front suspension kit, which is going to make it a whole lot easier for me to do. So, but anyway, let me come around here on this part of the car. And you can also, something you'll notice, there's no, all the headlights have been taken completely out. All that's gone. We've done away with that because I'll be building a brand new grill insert. I'll be building a brand new core support to hold the radiator, and the way that's all done. So I'll do that. We're going to keep the dual headlights. I'm just going to build the buckets myself, where we can clean up the front end of that. We can get plenty of air into the front end, you know, where I can, when we put that LS up front. So let's come around here, and like I said, look at the structure of this car and how good it is until I got my hands on it. Now there's our first repair job, and you know what that was. That's where the gas tank door was at. So I've already filled that in and got that looking pretty good, and you can see that looks real good there. So in doing that, that's pretty smooth. It takes just enough filler to get that little ridge there, which is the way I normally do mine. We'll get some epoxy primer on that, and that'll keep that from rusting out. So as we move around here and look at the inside of the car and the floor pan, there's not a better Flintstone car around now. You can see how this thing has been, how this kind of been cut out here all the way to the unibody. And guys, I'll share something with you too. If you're worried about cutting a Corvair out like this, or most of the unibody cars, you can see how everything's gone. And I'll share this with you. Check this out. Like I say, the gauge cluster. We're going to keep that instrument panel like that, but we'll replace again all the panels or the instruments inside are going to be with the new autometer. But we're going to keep almost the factory look of this car. I'll put a new steering wheel on it probably, but we're going to keep the factory look. So it's again, we're kind of building maybe a little sleeper is what I guess you'd call it, to where you don't really know that we're running a 500 horsepower LS motor in this and all that fun stuff. But look at the rockers, how good a shape they were in. All of the panels, the doors, I've got everything out here. Everything's just really as clean as it can be. All of the edge of the doors. And let me show you this. I'm going to shut the door, and I cut this out with the doors closed, and just watch this. Check this out. See the seam on the door? It didn't move at all when I cut all that floor pan out of there. So right now you're fine on what you've got, and we're actually going to use that original cross member right there that's holding in the transmission. But what I'm going to do with it, I'll take that and I'll weld it to the side of the frame rails, but I'm gonna put a plate over that, probably some maybe some 11 gauge and maybe horseshoe around that, where that'll strengthen up that old unibody and make it a lot stronger than what it is. And then we'll continue that chassis from front to rear all the way back to that corner where the cross member's at, with some 2x4 rectangle tubing to give us plenty of strength. And we'll run some other support tubing out to the side of the car where the unibody's at, to strengthen the body up. So we're not going to have to worry about that going anywhere. But as I come around here, I'll show you the trunk, which now is going to house the brand new gas tank from Tanks. We're going to run a 16-gallon. Look at that. Now, that's just a ton of room. Now, I did cut that out. There was a bad panel there. Someone had welded a pan in. I've already taken that out where they had the battery, and we'll fix that quarter panel down there. So that's some of the little things that you just have to do. But look at this side. It's in just fantastic condition. A little bitty hole out there on the other side, and I'll show you all those as we go a little further along in the build. But you're getting the biggest part of it. Man, I just think the back of the car is just awesome looking. I love that. We're going to keep the lower pan. That opening over there was for the original turbo muffler. It only had a single. We're going to duplicate that though and put it over there on that side, and so we can match that up. We'll run a full stainless steel exhaust, probably a 2.5 inch. Will give us plenty of exhaust with that 5.3 LS. So again, I like the 15-inch wheels. It fits the style of the car for me. And but this is the passenger side here, looking over to the driver, and you can see what I was getting ready to do right there. I've cut the unibody sections out right there, and I was just gonna, again, I was gonna beef that up around that and subframe connect this from the front to the rear. And then, like I said, we got in touch with Morrison, and again, if they help us out here, we're gonna just do a brand new front suspension on it, and we'll go from there, which is gonna just be a huge improvement over what I was getting ready to do. So you can see all that's cut out, all the way over to there. And we've got everything almost cut out up to that. And I'll replace this. Again, this was in good shape. It wasn't rusted through. But the fun part of this, once I get through, we're going to have a brand new floor pan, brand new transmission tunnel. And one thing I want to do as a street rod builder here, it's one thing to build a car and make it look good up top. It's another thing to make it look the same underneath it. All the hot rod guys that are builders that do this for a living, that's the first place they're going to go when they look at this car. So when you look under it, it's going to look as good underneath as it does on the top. So that's just the way you should build a car. But anyway, I'm going to finish up here. That's the car. That's the story for right now on episode 1. And so I really can't thank you enough for tagging along here. And like I say, I can be a little long-winded, but I appreciate it. And again, I hope you will join us on this on the Corvair build. Again, we've got 23 more episodes to go, and we may have to throw in a few more even after that. But I think you're going to see the car is going to be awesome looking when it's finished. Again, not going to go full pro touring as to what I might have the concept might have been years ago, it's almost going to sit just like it does right now. And so give me some comments on that and let me know what you think about that. And so that's where I'm heading. Again, thanks for watching, and I hope you'll come back and visit and subscribe. You'll get the notification. And in a couple of weeks, as we start getting parts in, we start building the car, whether it's paint and body, sanding, whatever we're going to do. I hope you'll join us as we do another video and we do episode 2 of Highway 66. Thanks for watching. Have a great afternoon. See you next time. Bye-bye.